Hey, John, welcome to the show. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Oh, well, thanks, Brian. Thank you very much. I'm actually very honored and thrilled to be on this. I follow your stuff on all different media platforms, and you're tremendous. So thank you. Well, I mean, I guess I got into sales about 30 plus years ago. My family owned travel agencies, and so I mean, when that was a thing, travel they're very few and far between now. But when I started to work for my father, and he put me in charge of corporate travel, which is, as you may or may not know, is really sort of an intangible product or service. And I was in a bad Anderson Little suit, knocking on doors, talking to guys our age now. But I was
Yeah.
23 years old, just knocking on doors, not knowing anything really about sales, but really just trying to create, some sort of interest. And I guess how I intrinsically was able to create relationships and have some success at that job. And it was really all because of the way in which I was able to, build rapport quickly. And maybe they felt sorry for me, but they were willing to give me a chance when we were going up against companies such as like, American Express and some of these big giant conglomerates. They were willing to give me a chance because all I was able to do is tell them and be sincere about the fact that we're going to offer the best prices and the best service, and I'm going to be here if something goes wrong. And that's how that's sort of how my whole sales career has been, is the idea that, it's, yeah, you're representing your company that you're selling for, but you're also representing yourself. And there's a bond there that's a little bit different than just a business to business or a consumer to, it's just a different contract, or pact that you're making with the person across from
And what was it like leaving your family business?
you. That's a story unto itself for a
Did you have a
variety of reasons.
choice?
But no, I mean, no, it was basically, and I love my father to death. But it was his baby, and I left that business because I had done I'd done relatively well, but I still almost had to ask my father to go to the bathroom. And I was getting to the point where I was 24, 25, and I saw other friends of mine making all this, all the, and still a lot, but I had a company car. So that was sort of like a weird scenario where I just decided, and every time I would try to, talk to my father about it, he was like, "You still have more to learn. You still have more to learn. You still have more to learn." So I finally, at one point, decided, with no plan B, um, I was starting to have a really bad taste in my mouth from my dad, and I was like, "I can't do this anymore. I got to just," So I went into the office, I handed him my keys, and I said, "I gotta, I don't, I'm beginning to hate you. I don't want to hate you. I love you. I got to go do something else." He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know." And luckily, I went to work for a company called Paychecks, where I got a actual formal education in sales. So it was very interesting that I started doing sales with really nothing other than just a handshake and, I guess, some conversation skills. And then, then I went to Paychecks. We had a month where I was up in Rochester, New York, and all I did was learn about sales 101. And it was actually mind blowing. But a lot of it does come down to the relationship that you have with the person in front of you.
Because, yeah, it's professional communication.
Right, right. And it's interesting because even in this COVID world where you're not one to one with somebody, there's also an energy or a vibration that you
Yes.
give off. And in a lot of cases, you get, and you probably get phone calls on your cell phone. And now they're robots, but a lot of times you get somebody trying to cold call you, and they don't want to be there. You don't want to get the phone call, and it's really just a bad scenario for every. I mean, the odds are very low that anything successful is going to come out of that. However, if you're able to, in the days when cold calling was a lot more pervasive, the biggest thing you could do is just be yourself, and just let that flow. Because I think, like I said, people, even though we're not face to face, there's an energy that we give off.
Yeah.
And that's an incredibly strong thing, probably more so than anything I could ever say or any point I could ever make, is the idea that you trust me, and that I'm going to do, I'm going to do the best thing I can by you. And that's how it all works.
And then you went into leadership. Is that true?
Well, I've had throughout my career, I've had different paths. I've gone back and forth between leadership and carrying a bag, and sometimes being a player coach. And you know, I've I don't have much of an ego, so it doesn't matter to me whether I'm, managing or if I'm carrying a bag. Even if I'm carrying a bag at my advanced age, I'm still trying to mentor people and mentor. I
Well, it's
love
good to
feeling.
see you still getting around.
I'm 54, Brian. It's not easy.
No.
So, um, but no, so that's pretty much been the way I've maneuvered my career.
Yeah. Did you have any preference? Did you enjoy leadership, or
I
did
know
you?
I definitely enjoy leadership. That's not a problem. But the other thing too is though you know, um, I do like sales. I love the craft of sales. I love the idea of, and I've done all different types of sales throughout my career because, I've done a lot of startups, and sometimes in startups, man plans and God laughs. And, you go in thinking you're going to be leadership, and you realize that you've got to prove the concept, and you're hiring people that you're hoping you're going to prove the concept, but they're not really getting the job done. And so sometimes you have to kind of come off your, out of the ivory tower, so to speak, and
Yeah.
roll your sleeves up and just go ahead and, get the concept proven so we can get funded.
And do you like the startup world? Because it's very
Yes,
different than the big company.
yes, I do. I do like the startup world. I've dipped my foot in the big company. About a job or two ago, or a job ago, I was on the global strategic team with Semantic, and
Yeah.
that was terrific. I mean, prior to having that job, I had always had a little bit of, I was always a little bit intimidated by the Fortune 500 sales team because that's what I had been going up against my whole career. I was always the startup, the ankle biter, if you will, trying to get at, pick off some of the scraps that the big boys just didn't, seem to pick up. Um, and that worked out fine. I mean, I think, the same formula applies that it's all about the relationships. However, there's a lot more involved in the, in the enterprise space that, then there's a lot more red tape, and I don't have a problem with that, but it's when you have a hour and a half meeting with a customer and you have 5 hours of, you know, link, Salesforce and different things you need to do to go and send that to
Documented. Yeah.
right, communicate that back to the business. It just gets a little much. Like
It does.
I'm more like, okay, what are the next steps? And I get the whole planning piece of it. They need to because they're a publicly traded company. Got it. But I just like to be a little more creative and a little
Yeah.
bit more, just I don't know. I think the idea of having it all written down is great, but I think actions. I'm more of an action person.
Right. I agree with you 100% there. Now, I think that first experience of, the door to door, almost business to business
Yes,
with, no training, that was great groundwork, right? To build up that.
terrific round, terrific round.
Yeah. And what did you learn at Paychecks that was kind of new to you?
Well, I learned that there's a dance that needs to be played. There's a dance that needs to be danced on both sides.
Yeah.
And, at a certain point, you do have the right to ask a tough question. If you're doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing, you can't necessarily just be giving. You have to also, there's an agreement that's
Yeah.
implied in all of the conversations that you're having. And there's also a cadence. And if that cadence gets broken, obviously we need to understand, we need to take a step back and say, listen, am I crazy, but I'm feeling something different here? Is there the momentum left? Is it, is this now turned into a back burner issue or a back burner project, or where are we? And I think early in my career, I was too busy trying to, sure, whatever, I'll jump through hoops, I'll do everything you want.
More
But at a
service
certain
than
point,
sales.
right, exactly. And you learn once in a while where somebody takes advantage of you that, hey, wait a second, that didn't feel great. And I don't know if I have the guts to, make an enemy here, but I have to ask a tough question. I have to ask maybe an uncomfortable question. And that's really where, that's one of the things that I learned there, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Because, not a lot of people teach that. A lot of people
No.
teach that first part, how to get in the door, and they assume that since you got in the door, they're going to buy.
Right, right. And no, that doesn't,
There's,
and the other,
there's a lot that happens after you get in the
well,
door.
exactly. And especially whether it was for an enterprise sale or whether it was for anything else I've done, and most of the stuff most of the jobs I've had in my career, I've sold enterprises. So that's not, when I say enterprise, I was referring more to my job at Semantic, where that was an enterprise sales team,
Right.
but I was more in a startup trying to sell into enterprises. And, it's even more, relationships are even more important in that scenario, because, not only are you working on, 15 different relationships throughout the enterprise, because you need to be, the IT people, the operations people, you need to know the CFO, you need the procurement people, you need relationships on all those fronts, and they need to feel comfortable that you're going to be there for them when the excrement hits the ventilator, so to speak.
And so now you're at a startup now, is that true?
Yes, I work for a company called Builder, and we are basically, we create mobile apps and custom software on an artificial intelligence platform. It's the basic premise, and we work with startups. Our customers are entrepreneurs, startups, small, mid-sized businesses, and also enterprise as well. And we're able to help each one in a variety of different, come from a variety of different angles. And, so that we're basically the Wix for mobile apps, if you will.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, but who do you sell to? Is it engineers? Is it marketing? Is it?
For the most part, I work with, again, we started out with really no clear game plan. It was just like, go figure it out. Because that's kind of where we were at that time.
Oh.
I've realized that in this particular role, it's been a really good strategy to partner up with digital agencies, digital marketing companies, and because it's sort of a force multiplier. I can have one or two relationships, and they can go out and give me, provide me, 4, 5, 6 times the leads that I would possibly get in, just sitting there banging on the phone, in an 8-hour day.
And what skill do you wish you had, or wish you were better at?
Geez, we could also have another podcast about that. But I think, one of the things I'm pretty good at presentations, in that I'm a people person. However, there are times when I wish I were a little bit more polished with regard to how I communicate. But that's also helped me out tremendously throughout my career, because I am me. It's not like, I'm sure you've gotten phone calls, or you've seen the guy who turns into the disc jockey when they call, or when they're in the boardroom. Hey, Brian, how are you? It's good to, hey, great day today, isn't it? Yeah. How about those Jets? Yeah, no, it's all right. So yeah, so it's, from time to time, I've wished I were a little bit more polished with the way I communicate, or that type of thing. But I have had a CEO tell me that he loved my competent irreverence, is what he called it. And
some people call it authenticity.
Well, yes, exactly. But it was, when I thought about that, he had we had a good relationship, so I knew he wasn't really, kind of digging me. But after a while, I thought about that, and I kind of use that as a badge of honor, because it is, if I am myself, I may not necessarily say the right thing at the right time all the time, but I will get to the point where I'm asking the right questions and uncovering what I need to uncover.
Well, that's it. Because if you act like a rep, you get put in the rep zone.
Yes, very much so.
Where they only want to talk. They don't want to talk to you. They only want to transact.
Yes.
Give me a trial. Get me a quote.
And try having them answer your phone call. Like, that's the thing. It's right, exactly. So they need to, at least when they see that you're calling them, especially these days, because I can't show up at their office, shake their hand, take them to dinner, maybe go to a baseball game or whatever. I can't have that interaction. So it is very much an intangible skill that you need to at least have them like you. I mean, you listen, like is a very, I don't like when salespeople use the word like, because it's too nebulous, but there is because you have to have something behind that. Like, you have to have a substance behind what, that emotion is, that positive emotion is, but you also you know, that's a big thing, is I don't believe people will buy from people that they don't like. I think that it makes things easier all the way through.
Yeah, you don't have to be their friend.
Right,
You do have to be friendly.
right,
And the acid test is when they see your caller ID come up,
right,
regardless of them needing something, do they want to talk to you?
right. And it also gives you the entree into asking that tough, uncomfortable question.
Yeah.
Like, really, where are we? Like, what is this something that's going to happen, or is it not going to happen? You know, just between us girls, what's going to, you know, how's this going to happen? So,
And that's important because you need to prioritize your time.
right.
And nobody likes to deliver bad news.
Yes. However, if the baby's ugly, that's the other thing I've learned. If the baby's ugly, you need to, and that's on both sides, whether you're talking to the customer or whether you're talking to your business. You know, you turn around and say to your business, "Hey, listen, you know, that deal I thought I was going to have this month, something just happened and it's not, you know, you can't sugarcoat that, because it's also your credibility on the line as well." And, you know, things happen. I mean, there's a lot of times just situations change, and it's not through any fault of your own.
Right.
And if you're doing all the blocking and tackling you think you should be doing within that opportunity, if something changes, you have the right to say, "Hey, listen, guys, I didn't, you know, this just happened. I apologize, but you know, this deal is going to get pushed to the next quarter because of whatever." And it is what it is.
And what were some of the epiphanies that you had as you went through your career?
Well, I think uh, this may get a little hokey, but I mean, I feel as though if you're givers gain. All right. So I mean, it's more about, if I can pass on to anybody. I mentor quite a few, you know, kids in their 20s, where I'm helping them with different questions that they have, and helping them prepare for, you know, meetings and stuff like that. Like small things, like when you're at a board, in a boardroom, and which nobody's in a boardroom these days, but you know, when we get to being in boardrooms and you're presenting, always have your hands above the table where they can see, where your prospects can see your hands. It's sounds insane, but it basically not intrinsically, but there's you know, they it just sends a signal that you're trustworthy, and that's, you know, you're not hiding anything. And there's a lot of intangible things like that over the course of, you know, 30 years, where I mean, I'm sure you've had some just nightmare presentations and presentations of, unbelievably, the difference between that is it could be very slim.
It is because I always say people don't think, they react. So
That's true.
you don't know how they're going to react to certain things. Everyone thinks it's only about what you say.
Right. No,
It's how
it's
you
not at all.
show up.
Right. It's how you show up. And again, it's all the energy that it's there's so many intangibles that go into it. And I think, I don't know I don't know where I read it, but where I heard it, but you know, something like 75% of all communication, and that 75% might be a bigger number or smaller number, but it's in that ballpark. 75% of all communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we're making decisions unconsciously that we don't even really, you know, we're not consciously making these decisions, and whether we like somebody, whether we trust somebody, whether, you know, somebody's telling the truth or whatever. And that's basically it. But the other thing, Brian, to get back to what you're saying about epiphanies is, you know, the idea that being brutally honest in a sales situation has worked for me. And I'll give you an example. Like, you know, one of my jobs was we were selling mobile logistics for oil and propane fleets around the country. We were revolutionizing the industry. You know, so you're talking about very disruptive technology. So you need to, you know, everybody's got to be involved, from the dispatcher, the GM, the owner, the drivers, you know, the people in the back who, you know, Betty in the back who's in accounts payable, receivable, that they're all, you know, they're all involved. And so, you know, at certain points with the technology that we're selling, is we've got to, you know, workflow process is a big deal. So many times I would say, you know, we're not the company for you. And the reason why is because you do your workflow process this way, and this way. And our most successful projects are when you do your workflow process this way, that way, and this way. And you can hear a pin drop, because they're like, wait a second, you're basically telling us that, you know, that's, and I would tell you probably more times than not, that company would rework the workflow process because they've never heard a sales guy go into a company and basically disqualify themselves. And that's how it's definitely worked well for me throughout my career.
Well, because the truth is a give.
Right,
You didn't have to do that. You could have kept your mouth shut and
right,
see if they
and
go for it anyway.
right, and try to fit that round peg in a square hole later on, or leave it off to the delivery team to let them deal with it. I'm on to the next deal. But again, it's I don't have a reference then. I don't have and it's just not the way to do. It's not ethically the way I want to do, the way I want to walk this earth.
Because I see that certainly in like people in the first 5 years, they don't get the give.
Right. Hmm.
They think it's that since it's their job to sell, it's someone else's to buy. It's like, no, it doesn't work that
Well,
way.
and that's and I think that's the gift of being in this game. As long as you and I have been in this game, is there's certain things that I know I can. There's certain truths that I've come across. Whereas probably when I was in my 20s, I would have thought I was going to lose my job, or my manager would be upset with me, or this, that, the other thing. And yes, those are all byproducts of certain things that actually end up happening. But if you're doing the right things, and you're doing the right blocking and tackling, eventually you get to the point where you're comfortable in your own skin, and you can say, hey boss, listen, I did everything I possibly needed to do on this, and here's the reason why. And if your boss, the other thing too is one of the things you also need to be able to do in any sales team is make sure that your manager doesn't have to worry about you. If he or she has 10 or 15 people that they're managing, the one gift you could give to your sales manager is, hey, listen, you know what? I know I got 4 or 5 people, but when my head hits the pillow, I got 4 or 5 people that I worry about. But when my head hits the pillow at night, I'm not worried about Rosen. I know he's doing everything he possibly can to do whatever, for the team.
And that's a great point, because I always found it that the sale moves so much faster when you do give.
Yes,
And the more you give, you got to be judicious. You got to be
of
with the
course.
people that are most likely to buy, have interest. But I see so many companies that like they won't give unless they pay for something. It's
Right.
always transactional.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
And the problem is it turns into a transaction, not a transformation.
Right. And that's not how you build a business. You build a business and you build a customer base on raving fans.
Yes.
And that's really, that's how you build everything.
Well, what do you typically see younger salespeople doing wrong?
Uh, I think they're, and I probably did the same thing, although I was probably too dumb to, realize it, or to, but I think they just haven't gotten the comfort level within their own selves to really ask the tough questions. As long as they're getting yeses, they're fine. They're happy, and they feel as though they're moving the ball down the field. But what they really don't realize is that they're not. Every once in a while, you need to ask a tough question, just as a sanity check that the whole process is going along in the right direction. And yeses sometimes are great, but yeses sometimes can set you back an awful long way.
Right. You can't assume that the other person, that yes means the same thing that means to you.
Right. Exactly.
It,
Exactly.
it might just mean I'm done talking to you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And you listen, especially in the enterprise space, companies will, string you along for information, and it's
Right.
not,
Yeah.
you know,
Because
and, and
they assume the other company, your company's paying your salary.
right. Exactly. So, there's been plenty of situations when I've been in leadership where I've realized, wait a second, no, these guys, I'll ask a couple questions, and the sales guy will be like, oh my God, yeah, yeah. I'm like, well, no, wait a second. No, that's not happening. They're basically waiting for us to drop our price to a point where they can get the vendor that they really want to work with to that same level. So we need to at least start asking some more questions.
And what motivates you?
At this point in my career, what motivates me is the idea that I can help other people. I mean, I do love what I do. I love startups. I love selling. I love creating strategies that we can go to market with and scale a business. That's really what what motivates me these days. Luckily, I've had a pretty good career where it's not like I'm worried about that big commission deal coming in or whatever. It's more about staying active and being in the game, and the craft of sales is certainly something that I absolutely love. But it's also a way to also give back to people that 20 somethings that are still they're still trying to find their way. That's what I love to do.
And is it avoid or hate losing or love winning?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh my God, that's a chicken and egg. I hate losing. That's definitely for sure. I hate losing. Can't stand it. And part of what any good salesperson does is they're motivated by their fear of failure more so than their success, because I think a lot of people don't even know how to deal with success when it actually comes to them. But I think I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one, Brian. But I do hate losing, but but I don't know what I think early on. My fear of failure was definitely something that motivated me.
Yeah, I think that one of the key distinction is how people process that loss.
Right,
Do they learn from it, or do they
right.
try and brush it off and get over it as fast as possible?
Well, and that's a great point, because first of all, you have to learn that it's not personal.
Yeah.
And I think we all get involved, especially in these long, complicated sales processes that, take months to happen. It all comes down to like 1 week, the week that they're ready to decide. And it's, you have all your presentations together, everything else. You're so emotionally invested. And then you can end up losing by literally this much. And, if your company doesn't want to give like another 2% discount off of something, then they're going to go the other way. Well, they probably weren't going to go that way towards you anyway. But regardless of which, you can't help but feel like, wait a second, I just got rejected. But you have to, it's not necessarily that way. It's you've got to realize that it's not
Right.
all
Yeah.
about you.
Was it not a right match? Did
Right,
did the competition do something that you didn't,
right.
or the product,
Yep,
whatever it is, so that you can learn from it and not repeat it?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, cool. Hey, appreciate your time today, John. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Oh, well, Brian, first of all, lastly, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I enjoyed this conversation. On LinkedIn, I'm just under John Rosen, or john.rosen@builder.ai.